The South African Airways and how it was allegedly captured will feature at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry this week. Today it will hear evidence from former South African Airways CFO Phumeza Nhantsi and Director of BNP Capital Daniel Mahlangu. Last week, SAA's former head of financial risk management, Soraya Stimple, finalized her testimony. She gave damning evidence of how the SAA board under Dudu Myeni failed to follow proper governance processes when awarding a 15 billion rand contract for a consolidation loan. She also told Judge Zondo how senior managers who did not toe the line were suspended. Now, to take this conversation further, we're now joined in studio by a reporter, Mbalenhle Mthethwa. Mbali, thank you so much for joining us. Let's just, before looking at what to expect today, look at the evidence of Ms. Stimple last week. What were the highlights for you?
You know, what really stood out is her decision and her how adamant she was to be a whistleblower, despite the fact that she stood the chance of losing her job. And we know that she was subsequently, suspended for basically blowing the whistle and speaking up against a particular contract, which was related to a decision by the board then to consolidate its loan of 15 billion rand. And she basically said that even though SAA had needed, the money and needed to consolidate its debt, it shouldn't have cost them 225 million rand. And she was basically saying that, she noted that, SAA at the time was deviating from regular procurement processes and regular governance. And she just didn't understand why her department, which was the Internal Treasury Department, was not involved. And she said that made her rather uncomfortable. And she also spoke about how the whole use of transaction advisors was a foreign concept and a very new concept. And she was also very uncomfortable with regards to that. And those are the things that...
Because it meant they had to spend more money.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So it would have meant that, the debt facility was going to, or the loan facility was going to cost them more than it would have if they had gone directly to the banks and communicated with the banks directly.
And structured something with the banks.
Of course, definitely. So that's what you heard from her, and her decision to become a whistleblower and how she went about, blowing the whistle and going to organizations like OUTA, as well as reporting the matter with the public protector, in order to, just make it known and to prevent this deal from going forward. Now, today we're going to hear the testimony of former CFO Phumeza Nhantsi. Yes, Phumeza Nhantsi has been implicated in Stimple's testimony. So some of her testimony will basically be a reflection on, or a response rather, on
giving her side of the story.
Definitely on what Stimple had said in her testimony. But she's also going to be giving, the events as they unfolded in her view, and, probably going to be giving reason and justifying some of the decisions they had made and the resolutions that were made by the board. We've heard Stimple talking about board interference. We've heard, contracts being suggested by number one, and number one meaning being taken to mean former President Jacob Zuma, and basically saying that, it was really irregular for the board to be involved in procurement decisions in the manner that they had been during Dudu Myeni's tenure as SAA board chairperson.
She also touched on the victimization of senior managers if they spoke out. Tell us about that testimony.
She did touch on that, and basically, that she explained that she was not the only one who had been suspended, and she explained that she felt that, charges were fabricated against people who did not toe the line, and basically because when they were suspended, they were not really aware of all the charges and of all the charges that were laid against them and the reasons why they were being suspended, and they'd later learn about those reasons. I mean, we've heard that there was a press briefing where it was said that she had been suspended for misconduct, but we've learned that she was not the only one who had been suspended.
So this is not the first time that the SAA is being mentioned at the State Capture Commission. right at the beginning of the process, Ms. Feki Mento came out and spoke about how route allocations were manipulated. And now we're hearing about the governance side in terms of the board and senior management. What else can we expect to hear in relation to the SAA?
We can definitely expect to hear more of that information and just get to the bottom of all of these route manipulations and how governance was weakened. At the heart of state capture and the heart of SOEs, what you've heard a lot about is the issue of governance being weakened in the interest of, siphoning money out of these SOEs. So we're going to hear information relating to how governance was weakened, as well as how certain, contracts and routes were manipulated in the interest of, particular companies or particular connected companies, if I may put it in that manner. But today we are also expecting to hear from a BNP Capital. One of their directors is also going to be there, Mr. Mahlangu, who's going to be giving testimony. We understand that, BNP Capital was one of the transaction advisors that was at the time appointed to basically facilitate this 15 billion rand loan facility for SAA, and he's going to be explaining to us. We've also heard that they FSB, or the Financial Conduct Authority certificate, had expired, and that's part of the reason why the deal didn't go through. So we're just going to be hearing more about that deal and what happened, and if there were any rules, if there's anything untoward in that transaction.
Just for interest's sake, what are transaction advisors? Is that conversation the same as the one where we talk about consultants who come in to duplicate the work that people who are already employed and paid to do that work and come in and duplicate that activity?
We can definitely actually equate them to consultants, because we have heard about transaction advisors at SOEs, not only at SAA, but more recently would be Transnet, and they basically come in and they do the services of what the internal Treasury Department would be doing with regards to going out and speaking to commercial banks and just trying to get loan facilities, or just managing the finances of the particular SOE. So you've seen that happening a lot.
Under what circumstances? Because one imagines that there are those really complex transactions that take place where you need to bring in maybe a separate capability. Under what circumstances do SOEs or firms need transactional advisors?
At this stage, we're not sure what circumstances they would need, but I mean they would be needed in. But we do hear that these Treasury departments have the capacity to facilitate these deals, and they have been doing it for many years and have the experience of doing these transactions without the assistance of transaction advisors. I mean, we heard from the Transnet leg a particular former group treasurer saying that she just didn't know how to interact with these transaction advisors because she felt that her team could do it, and the services
and yet
were
the payments would go out.
Yes, they were unnecessary and were unneeded. And it's the same thing with Stimple, who also testified that she just didn't know why they needed transaction advisors, and she felt that that deviated from regular processes. So you get the sense that these transaction advisors, who are some consultants, are basically a deviation from normal processes, and it's basically proof of procurement processes being manipulated in the interest of benefiting particular companies. I mean, in this interest, BNP was due to get 49.9 million rand in the event that SAA would cancel this deal and not go ahead with the deal. And we heard that, that was an amount that the SAA was supposed to pay.
These amounts just boggle the mind, hey?
Tell me about it.
Any notable responses from the Deputy Chief Justice from the SAA testimony?
Well, you do hear Judge Raymond Zondo just questioning some of the decisions that have been made, and just questioning why all of these things were made. What would be the reason for someone to have made those particular decisions, for any board interference and so on. So on Judge Raymond Zondo's side, you're just hearing a lot of questions, and it's almost as though there's a bit of shock in the revelations that are coming through. But he's also putting the dots together and saying that, but this is not the first time we're hearing of a trend such as this one. So clearly this has to be a trend.
Yeah. Mbali, thank you so much. You're going through. What time do the proceedings start this morning?
They start at 9:30.
Go through and get that action for us.
No problem.
Mbali Mthethwa will be crossing to her later on at the State Capture Commission in Parktown.